hum of the refrigerator filled the dimly lit kitchen, blending with the soft clink of dishes as Tamara rinsed off a plate. The glow from her phone lit up the counter beside her, showing her son Eli's face on the screen. His hoodie was pulled halfway over his head, dark curls peeking out, his gaze flickering restlessly off screen. "All right, Mum," he muttered, voice low and distant. "I should go." Tamara paused, holding a wet dish in one hand. "Already? I thought we could." "Never mind." She softened her tone. "Okay, love you." Eli scratched his head, barely glancing back at the camera. "Yeah, okay." The screen jostled as he lowered the phone. The image blurred sideways, then stilled, face down on some surface, but still connected. The video didn't cut off. Tamara turned back to the sink. The water ran. Her hands moved on autopilot. Then, a muffled voice, male, rough. She paused, tilted her head. "You tell her nothing, you hear me? If she finds out, she'll take everything. Let her keep thinking you're just tired." Her breath caught in her throat. The clatter of ceramic hitting porcelain echoed too loud. She fumbled for the phone, fingers wet, trembling. The image was black, but the audio was still running. Another voice, clearer now, familiar. Kyle, her ex-husband. "She's nosy as hell, that woman. That's why I needed you to play along. You don't tell her about the withdrawals. You don't say a damn word about the clinic, and especially not the pills. Got it?" Tamara stared at the phone like it might bite her. "Clinic? Withdrawals?" Eli's voice came next, hesitant, small. "I didn't want to lie to her," Kyle snapped. "Then grow up. This isn't about you. You want to stay out of foster care, you keep your mouth shut. I'll handle your mother. Just stay out of my way." Tamara pressed her hand to her mouth, tears welling uninvited. She stood frozen, her back to the dishes, to the soft flicker of kitchen light, everything fading except the cold, sharp words through the speaker. What was going on? Why was Kyle threatening their son? Why was Eli involved in something he clearly didn't understand? A beat of silence, then Kyle again. This time, lower. "We've come too far. Don't screw this up. I need the money." Tamara's world tilted. Her fingers gripped the phone tight, knuckles white, and as she stared at the blank screen, still connected, her heart shattered into 100 pieces, quietly, suddenly, like the first delicate crack of glass before it completely breaks. The hum of silence filled Mabel's apartment like a second skin. She sat at her kitchen table, her teacup cooling untouched, her gaze distant. The clock ticked steadily, reminding her of time lost, years given, years taken. In her mind, she returned to when it all began. She had arrived in America 35 years ago, a hopeful 23-year-old from Enugu, Nigeria. Her husband, Samuel, died in a construction accident just 3 years later, leaving her with 2 small children and a heart too heavy for words. There were no parents nearby, no sibling, just her and the dream she still clung to. She worked days at a dry cleaner and nights mopping hospital floors. Also, Amara and Chidi would never feel hunger, never know the ache of being without. But dreams don't always speak the same language across generations. Mabel had been strict, stern. She believed discipline was love, that pushing her children was how she showed she cared. She didn't know how to say "I love you" in the American way, with hugs and open praise. Instead, she said it with ironed uniforms, hot meals, and relentless expectations. Amara, bright and driven even at 10, absorbed the pressure like acid. To her, Mabel's every criticism cut like a blade. Her posture, her grades, her weight. Nothing was ever enough. By the time she hit high school, Amara had begun to close herself off. She buried herself in books and built walls Mabel didn't know how to climb. Chidi was different, gentle. He'd come home from art class with drawings of imagined worlds. Mabel would glance at them, unimpressed. "That won't put food on your table," she'd say flatly, handing him a list of chores. He stopped showing her his drawings by the time he was 12. As they grew older, the distance deepened. Amara won scholarships and left for college early, barely calling home. Chidi followed a few years later, disappearing into a world of freelance gigs and vague phone updates. And then there was Doris. Doris had been Mabel's old friend, once. An American woman, loud, stylish, charming. When Samuel died, Doris had stepped in as the children's godmother. She'd take them out for burgers, bought them flashy toys, whispered things like, "Your mother means well, but she's from another world." She smiled while planting seeds. Amara and Chidi gravitated toward her lightness. Doris laughed at their jokes. She told them they were brilliant. She called Mabel rigid and old-fashioned when she wasn't listening, and sometimes even when she was. By the time Amara graduated from university, Mabel was a ghost at her own dinner table. Invitations dwindled. Chidi moved to Los Angeles and stopped answering her Sunday calls. Doris, meanwhile, appeared at every milestone: birthdays, promotions, award dinners. When Amara got engaged, Mabel had found out from a neighbor. She waited for the phone call. It never came. Still, she sent her a message. "Congratulations. I pray this marriage brings you joy and patience. I'm here if you need me." No response. The bridal shower passed. The rehearsal dinner came and went. Still silence. And yet, every week, Mabel stood in the little shop downtown, wiring small gifts and money to both children. A blouse Amara once admired. A pair of sketch pencils Chidi had mentioned 2 years ago. Each package was wrapped with care and mailed with a note. Not once did she get a thank you. Now, back at her table, Mabel reached for her phone again. She opened her messages. Dozens of unanswered texts. Most were brief. "How are you? Do you need anything? Happy birthday, my son. Please call when you can." Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She started to type another message, then stopped. Her eyes watered, but not a single tear fell. She stood and walked to her window. Outside, people moved with joy and purpose. Wedding guests, she guessed. Some already dressed in pastels, pulling into driveways up the street. She imagined Amara in her gown, walking toward Jason, Doris beaming by her side. Mabel stood quietly. She would not beg. Her dignity was all she had left, and she intended to keep it intact, even as her children forgot the hands that once carried them through fire. Tamara sat in the silence of her dimly lit living room. The only sound the low hum of the refrigerator down the hall. Her thumb hovered over the video in her camera roll again. It was late, past midnight, but sleep was a stranger she hadn't seen in days. She hit play, the screen filled with Eli's distracted face, shifting nervously, glancing behind him. Her son, her baby, then the voice again, Kyle's voice. "You want that car, don't you? Then don't screw this up." Tamara's breath caught. The second time hurt more than the first, maybe because now she listened with more than shock. Now she was listening as a mother, a fighter. There was a pause, the camera still pointing toward the floor. Then Kyle again. "Tell the judge you want full custody with me. Say she's never home. Say she leaves you alone at night." Tamara's chest tightened, the words clawing at old wounds she thought had healed. The insinuation, the coldness, the lie. Then came Eli's voice, small but trembling. "I don't know. She's not bad. She tries." She pressed her fist to her mouth. Kyle snapped. "You don't get it. She's weak. She'll ruin your chances. You want to be something. You need to be with me." There it was. That old venom, dressed in ambition. The same tone he used to convince her she was crazy. The same manipulative rhythm. Tamara paused the video, sat staring at the screen as it froze on the top of Eli's messy hair and the shadow of Kyle's looming figure. This wasn't just about custody. This was about control. Again. She stood up, grabbed her coat, and drove without thinking. By the time she reached Lena Marquez's apartment, it was past 1. She hesitated outside the door, wondering if this was too much to ask of a friend from church. But she knocked anyway. Lena opened the door in sweats and a head wrap, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Tamara?" Tamara held up the phone like it weighed 20 pounds. "I need you to listen to something, please." They sat on Lena's worn couch while Tamara replayed the call. Lena didn't interrupt once. When the video ended, she slowly sat back, exhaling deeply. "He's coercing him," Lena said. "And if that affidavit was prepped already, this wasn't spur of the moment. He's building a case." Tamara's voice cracked. "What kind of case?" Lena frowned. "Custody reversal. If Kyle can convince a judge that Eli wants to live with him and that you're unstable or neglectful, he could flip custody. Especially at Eli's age, judges start listening to the kid more." Tamara shook her head, tears rising. "He's manipulating him. Eli doesn't know. He's just confused." Lena nodded gently. "I know, but courts don't always care about nuance. Kyle's probably trying to avoid paying increased child support now that Eli's almost 18. And if he gets custody, he can claim Eli on taxes. Might even come after you for support if he gets aggressive." Tamara covered her face with her hands. "How is this legal?" "It's not, but it's messy. and Kyle knows how to twist things to his advantage. You need to get ahead of this. Tamara left Lena's apartment numb and furious all at once. Back home, she crept into Eli's room. His door was cracked. He was curled on his side, one arm hanging off the bed, his phone still lit beside him. She watched him for a long time, every breath a mixture of grief and love. In the morning, while he was in the shower, she searched his backpack. She hated herself, but she couldn't not know. The envelope was still there. She pulled it out and unfolded the papers. Affidavit of custody preference. It was pre-typed, formal, cold. I, Eli Jensen, wish to live full-time with my father, Kyle Jensen. My mother is often away from home due to her work schedule, and I feel I would have more structure and opportunity living with my father. At the bottom, Eli's name was signed. Tamara touched the signature. Her son's handwriting, but off, shaky, like it had been written under pressure. She folded the paper with trembling hands, placed it back exactly as it was, and closed his backpack. When she sat down at the kitchen table, the sunlight just beginning to touch the curtains, her coffee untouched beside her, Tamara no longer felt tired. She felt a heat blooming in her chest. Not fear, not sorrow, something older, stronger. She'd spent years surviving Kyle. She knew his tactics. But this time, he had made one mistake too many. He tried to turn her son into a pawn, and Tamara wasn't about to lose him without a fight. Mabel listened to the voicemail 3 times before she deleted it. Jason's voice was soft but certain, not accusing, just curious. I don't think what they did was right. I'd like to meet you. For a day, she let it sit in her chest, uncertain of what it meant. Then, 2 days later, there was a knock on her door. She opened it slowly. Jason stood there, awkward in a pressed shirt and jeans, holding a small box of pastries. I wasn't sure if you liked these, he said. She stepped aside. The apartment was modest, clean, filled with old photographs and quiet silences. Jason sat carefully on the edge of the couch, his eyes scanning the family portraits. Mabel holding a young Amara on her back, Chidi sitting on her lap with a sketch pad. I wanted to hear your side, Jason said gently. Mabel's hands were folded tight. She took a breath. There's not much to tell. I came here with nothing. Their father died when Chidi was 6. I worked 2 jobs, nights at the hospital laundry, mornings at a grocery. They ate. They went to school. I made sure of that. Jason nodded. Amara said you were very strict. I was, Mabel admitted. I didn't know another way. In my house, respect was survival. I didn't hug much, but I cooked. I worked. I prayed for them. Her voice cracked. Maybe they needed more softness, but I didn't have softness left after all the days I came home and fell asleep sitting up. Jason looked at her with open sadness. They never told me about this. Not really, she shrugged. They only remember the silence. They never asked what it cost me to keep the lights on. Jason sat back, thoughtful. You gave them structure, safety. Maybe they mistook that for control. She gave him a look that was both tired and grateful. You're the first person who's asked. That night, Jason returned home quiet. Amara was already in bed, scrolling through her phone. When he walked in, she looked up. I saw you went to see her, she said flatly. Jason didn't deny it. I did. Amara stood up, voice rising. Why would you go behind my back? You don't know what it was like growing up in that house. I know what you told me, Jason said calmly, but that's just one piece of the story. Amara clenched her fists. She made me feel invisible. Every A wasn't enough. Every compliment came with a correction. Why not 100 instead of 98? Why not law school instead of marketing? Nothing I did mattered. Jason stepped closer, voice gentle. Maybe she didn't know how else to love. But that woman I met today, she's not hateful. She's just tired of being misunderstood. I don't care, Amara shouted. She's not the victim. Jason didn't flinch. And neither are you anymore. You're a grown woman rewriting history because it's easier than facing the grief. She stared at him, breath caught in her chest. Meanwhile, Chidi got wind of the meeting through a relative. He called Amara in a panic. You let Jason go see her. Are you insane? She reached out to him first, Amara lied. He just followed up. That woman does not change, Amara. Amara sighed. I know, but Jason sees something in her, and now I'm starting to doubt everything. Chidi was silent for a moment. You know I had panic attacks every time she entered the room. Do you remember that? Amara nodded. I do. We had to protect ourselves. That wasn't abuse. It was survival. But What if we got it wrong? Amara whispered. The tension came to a boil the next Saturday when Chidi showed up in New York, unannounced. Amara invited him over, and to her surprise, Jason had also asked Mabel to stop by, a decision she hadn't agreed to, but didn't stop. The room felt cold, even with the heater humming. Mabel entered cautiously, dressed simply, clutching her purse like a shield. Chidi stood, hands folded. So what is this? Some kind of intervention? Jason raised his hands. Number just a conversation. You don't get to mediate our trauma, Jason, Chidi snapped. You didn't live it. Mabel spoke softly. You're right, he didn't. But I did. She looked between her children. I was not easy. I came from a home where love looked like survival. I didn't know how to say I'm proud of you. I just knew how to keep you alive. Chidi's face was stone. You crushed me, Mom. Every drawing I showed you, you criticized. You laughed when I said I wanted to do art. You never believed in me. Tears welled in Mabel's eyes. I didn't laugh because I hated your dreams. I laughed because I was scared. I thought dreams would break your heart. I didn't want you to be poor like me. He looked away, blinking hard. Amara's voice cracked next. You used shame like a weapon. Every time I failed, you made me feel like I was nothing. Mabel's voice trembled, because in my mind, failure meant falling behind, and falling behind meant the world would swallow you. She took a long breath. I wasn't perfect. I didn't know how to love the way you needed, but The courtroom was colder than Tamara expected, not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Sterile, tense, ready to bleed the truth from everyone. She sat at the table beside Lena, hands clenched together in her lap. Across the aisle, Kyle strolled in like he was walking into a boardroom, not a courtroom. Perfect navy suit, polished shoes, confident smile. He even gave Tamara a nod, like they were co-conspirators in something civil. It made her stomach turn. The hearing began. Kyle's attorney launched first, painting a picture of Tamara as absent and unstable. She worked long hours, left Eli alone, let his grades slip. They submitted photos. Eli eating dinner by himself, Tamara's car not in the driveway, screenshots of texts showing unanswered messages. Kyle took the stand, his voice smooth and even, carefully rehearsed. I'm not trying to take Eli from his mother. I just want what's best for my son. A stable home, consistency, accountability. Tamara stared ahead, didn't flinch. Lena whispered, just wait. When it was their turn, Lena stood. Your Honor, she said, calm and steady. We have evidence to challenge Mr. Whitaker's credibility and his intent in this custody motion. With your permission, I'd like to submit an audio file into evidence. She handed the flash drive to the bailiff, who passed it to the clerk. The judge adjusted his glasses, clicked to play. The courtroom speakers crackled to life. Kyle's voice, sharp and unmistakable. You want that car, don't you? Then don't screw this up. Eli's soft response. I don't know. She's not bad. She tries. Kyle again, louder, more aggressive. You don't get it. She's weak. She'll ruin your chances. You want to be something. You need to be with me. The courtroom was silent except for Kyle's venomous commands. A few people in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. Tamara felt a ripple of shock move through the room. When the audio ended, the judge looked up slowly. Mr. Whitaker, he said, voice neutral but heavy. Do you have an explanation for this recording? Kyle's face had gone pale. That was taken without my knowledge. It's inadmissible. The judge raised a hand. Georgia is a one-party consent state, Mr. Whitaker, and this court takes coercion of a minor very seriously. Kyle's jaw twitched. Lena stood again. We also have a sworn statement from the minor in question, confirming he was pressured into signing a false affidavit. The judge nodded. Bring in the child. Eli walked in, small and stiff in a collared shirt Tamara had ironed the night before. His eyes scanned the courtroom and briefly found hers. She didn't smile. She just nodded once, steady. He was sworn in. The judge asked a few questions, calm ones, routine one. Then came the heavy one. Eli, do you want to live with your father full time? Eli looked down. His lip quivered. Then he said it, clear, broken. No. Silence. He sniffed, wiped his eye. He told me to lie, he said. He said if I didn't, he'd cut me off. He said Mum didn't care about me. But that's not true. She does. She always has. Tamara couldn't breathe. Eli's voice cracked. He bought me things. Said I'd be nothing if I stayed with her. That she was holding me back. The judge leaned forward. And the affidavit? You signed it under pressure? Eli nodded quickly. I didn't want to. He said if I didn't, he'd make my life hell. Kyle stood up suddenly. This is ridiculous. He's a kid. He doesn't understand. Mr. Whitaker, the judge warned. He's saying this because she got to him. This is her manipulation, not mine. Sit down, the judge ordered, louder this time. Kyle didn't. He kept going. You people have no idea what I've dealt with. She's made me out to be the villain since day one. Mr. Whitaker, sit down. Kyle finally stopped, breathing hard, his mask slipping completely off. The judge straightened his papers. This court finds no justification for modifying the current custody arrangement. Furthermore, based on the submitted recording and the child's testimony, I am referring this matter for further investigation. Potential coercion, psychological abuse, and custodial interference. Tamara felt her chest collapse and expand all at once. Lena put a hand gently over hers. Eli stepped down from the stand, walking slowly toward her. For a second, she wasn't sure what he'd do, but he wrapped his arms around her and held on. Kyle, meanwhile, sat frozen in his seat, his perfect suit wrinkled, face burning, the eyes of the courtroom now fully turned against him. Justice hadn't finished with him, but it had finally started. The apartment was quiet when Amara knocked. No fan humming, no pot bubbling on the stove, just the silence that falls between people who've gone too long without speaking. Mabel opened the door and stepped aside without a word. They sat across from each other, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the worn carpet. A cup of tea steamed on the table. Mabel hadn't touched it. For a while, neither of them spoke. Amara twisted the ring on her finger. Mabel's hands were still. Then, Amara finally asked, her voice soft but heavy, "Why didn't you fight back?" Mabel looked at her, not unkindly. "Because I didn't want to fight my own children, even if they were wrong." Amara blinked, lips pressed tightly together. She looked away. "I thought maybe, if I stayed quiet, maybe one day you'd remember," Mabel continued, "that I did not love you with hugs or soft words, but I loved you the way I knew how, through sacrifice." Silence returned, but it was softer now. "I didn't remember," Amara whispered. "I only saw what you weren't, not what you were." Mabel didn't nod, didn't rush to soothe. They just sat there. A week later, Chidi came by, holding a large, dusty photo album in his arms. He had found it in the back of Mabel's closet, wrapped in plastic, thick with time. He placed it gently on the coffee table and opened the first page. There was a photo of him at 4, grinning with 2 missing front teeth, holding a wooden toy lion. Amara sat beside him, her eyes scanning the page as more images surfaced. Birthdays with store-brand cake, school projects, moments framed by exhaustion, but filled with effort. Photo after photo, their childhood unfolded like a confession they had ignored. "Do you remember this one?" Chidi asked, pointing to a picture of the 3 of them at a snow-covered bus stop. Mabel's face wind-burned but smiling faintly. Amara did. She remembered how Mabel had wrapped her own scarf around Amara's neck and gone without. Something cracked open then, something long buried. "I'm sorry," Amara said, tears in her eyes, "for believing other people's stories about you, for not asking you for your own." Mabel looked at her for a long time. She didn't say, "It's okay." She didn't say, "I forgive you." She just said, "It's a start." And that was enough. Weeks passed. The healing didn't come all at once. There were awkward silences in therapy, moments of blame that resurfaced like old bruises, but they kept showing up. Amara and Chidi made space for Mabel's truths, and Mabel, slowly, began to unfold pieces of herself she had long buried. Her dreams, her regrets, her fierce pride in the lives her children had built, even if she hadn't always known how to say it. And for the first time, Mabel began to imagine a life that wasn't just waiting for her children to remember her. She signed up to teach a cooking class at the local community centre. Nigerian meals on an American budget, she called it. The room was packed by the second week. Her jollof rice became the talk of the neighbourhood. People asked about her spices, her stories, her life. She laughed more. She wore brighter colours. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was Mabel Onwu, a woman who had walked through fire and who, at last, had learned to walk for herself. The golden scent of roasted yam and spiced turkey hung in the air. The table, stretched full with food and laughter, glowed under the soft light of a modest chandelier. Plates clinked, glasses chimed, and warmth filled every corner of the room. Mabel sat at the head of the table, her back straight but at ease, a patterned scarf tied gracefully around her shoulders. Beside her sat Amara, cheeks flushed from wine and laughter. Across from them, Chidi cradled a yawning baby girl, her curls thick and wild, like his had been as a boy. Jason stood to pour more wine, a towel tossed casually over his shoulder. "All right," Jason said, tapping his glass gently. "Before dessert, a toast." Everyone leaned in. The room quieted. Jason smiled at Mabel. "To second chances, to healing, and to the people who teach us how to love better. Even when we don't deserve it," they all raised their glasses. "To second chances." Mabel blinked, her vision misty. She reached across the table and gently laid her hand over Amara's. "This time," she said softly, "I didn't need an invitation." Amara looked up, eyes already shining. "I belonged here all along." No one spoke. They didn't have to. The words settled around them like a warm quilt. The baby cooed. Chidi chuckled. Someone passed the plantains. And Mabel, once erased, once silenced, was finally seen. Not just as a mother or a woman who once struggled, but as someone whose place at the table had never truly been lost. She had simply waited, with grace, with pain, and with the quiet strength that had always been hers. Now, she was home. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.